yeah. That before?
Oh, yeah.
And see you. Good to see
I was, volleyball down in Florida. What grade is your son in?
you. Actually, he's gonna be a senior this fall. Yeah, that's who my son plays for.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, yep. Just, all right, Dave. He's on the U7 team, something.
Were they in the club or open?
Oh, this last trip was for the HP.
Oh, high performance.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
you participate in that?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
good for him.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, it's 5:30. We're going to call this meeting of Public Works and Highway Committee to order. Attendance shows all committee members are present. I will entertain a motion for the approval of minutes from the 7th of June.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second it.
Any comments or changes on the minutes? Hearing none, we will vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Public comment. Anybody who would like to speak will come up to the podium and state their address and name. If you're here for something that's on the agenda that we're going to be discussing, wait until that time, okay? But if there's something that's not on our agenda that you have a discussion and want to make comments on, I welcome you up to the podium. Nobody here for something that's not on the agenda. Okay, and we'll move on to new business. Road work on Manor Court discussion. Who's handling this? You? I just want to, as a prelude, make a comment that this was brought to our attention late last week that this was an issue. And I'm going to have staff discuss this first about why it is the way it is. And then I'll invite anybody who wants to come up to make comments. Okay? Steve?
Thank you. As part of this year's paving program, the roads in the Country Manor subdivision were repaved. That work consisted of the pulverization of the existing pavement with an asphalt overlay. One of the issues that came up over the course of the construction is that many, probably most of the households in that subdivision had constructed concrete driveways that extended the driveway aprons into the right of way. The village policy and practice is that when we repave roads, that we do repave with asphalt the area that is within the roadway itself, the right of way, and that included in this case the pulverization of some of the concrete aprons that had been installed by the residents there. And then the asphalt was installed over those aprons that had formerly been concrete. That is a long-standing village policy, and we actually did just pull out some of the driveway approach and culvert permits from 2010 when the subdivision was constructed, and the driveway permits that were issued at that point did state that concrete was not to be used within the village right of way. We did verify that and provide that information to some residents who did contact us about the issue. So I did include in the packet just a copy of one of the and I believe there's hard copies here, one of the permits, so you can see that if you'd like.
Okay, Dennis, were you going to speak?
Yeah, on behalf of the residents.
Please
that
state,
rep-
state who you are and you have to do the whole thing. You're just a resident right now.
Actually, I'm a trustee.
Trustee who's a resident. You have to state your name and address.
Trustee Dennis Myers, N as in North 115, W as in West 20309, Woodland Drive. This particular area was brought up to my attention. I know where the roads are because I'm always paying attention to roads. This particular road, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you. I'm wondering, is the microphone on though? Can people hear you on TV is what I'm wondering.
I use my playground voice as I make my joke about. Anyhow, base,
It doesn't sound like it's on.
And I can just state there, we are looking into an issue with the speakers here in the room.
Okay,
But we can verify that the broadcast has been picking up the audio when people
Okay.
are speaking into the microphone. So
I just speak,
Talk loud.
try to speak louder per se. It's- I
Everybody can
joke
hear you.
about.
Yeah.
Anyhow, this particular road is off of Appleton Avenue, and then the other road behind it is Amy Bell Road. The reason why I mentioned about that particular road is that when this subdivision was built, there were 16 families, I believe, in there, and one of the roads, two of the roads in there are cul-de-sacs. The other one went straight up to Amy Bell Road. But what happened is a lot of people in the early part were cutting through there rather than going further north and then coming around. And so the residents who were there at the time asked to have that changed, which was done. But one thing that wasn't done in that particular roads in there was they only put a binder down. They didn't put the final 2 inches of asphalt, which is normally what they would end up doing. It hasn't been done, and I think it was something that was just found out within a short period of time after that. When we look at the PASER rating that engineering does every 2 years for the state, at that particular time, that particular road was put down as it would, they would mill 2 inches off and then they would finish it off. When the actual contract came out, it was changed as our administrator, Steve, had mentioned, that they pulverized at that time. And then that's where the problem began in regard to that. And so that's pretty much the idea. I will say that one thing in regard to the 16 residents out there, 14 of them do have the concrete all the way out, as Steve had mentioned, and it is in the permit. I didn't know that from before, but that's fine. When you go around Germantown for ones that don't have gutters and so on and so forth, you'll find that a lot of them do the same thing. So there are 14 out of 16 that actually have concrete in there. I will let the residents at this time utilize their time to explain further in regard to that, but thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Who would like to come up and speak? You state your name and address, please, for the record.
My name is Adam Dempsey. My address is N113W21909 North Manor Court. And yeah, I mean, we were just not happy with the way the road was done. It looks significantly worse than it did before. It didn't need to be redone. And we're just not happy that we lost a good part of our concrete driveways. I had several things to say, but a lot of it's already been said. So I guess the one thing that I don't understand, Stephen, is that like Dennis alluded to, there's other neighborhoods in this road improvement project, like Parkland Circle, for example, and others where you did not go into the right of way and you did not replace with asphalt. So if it's your policy to always replace the right of ways with asphalt, why was ours done differently than others?
Well, I'd have to look into the specifics of the design that was done for each one of the roads. And I'm not an engineer, so I am kind of filling in here tonight to help out with that. But you know, the roads we have a road engineer who does prepare the specifications that are put in the contract. And for your subdivision, I know this one isn't. So, sorry about that. The our engineering firm who prepared the bid specifications for the roads looks at each road based upon the specific situation from each road. They'll prepare the designs, and those designs are bid on by contractors. The contractors come in and they complete the road work based on the design. So why your design was done differently than a design in another area, I don't know the specifics of that tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bummer because I stopped and talked to Payne and Dolan when they were doing the work and said, why are you doing it this way? And his answer was, well, the budget's kind of tight, so we're doing it this way. Meaning, like, you're not doing it correctly, you're doing it to pinch pennies and then put the burden on us to have our properties changed when there's other neighborhoods that it was done correctly and their properties look exactly the way they did before you guys came through, and ours look differently, and we don't think that's right, so.
Steve, if I can ask a question and make a comment on that. Is there a chance we didn't just get to some of these neighborhoods and do the roads with a pulverized and overlay yet? This is why it'd be beneficial to have Scott here tonight.
Yeah, there are, well, and Scott wasn't involved in this part of the
Yeah.
paving program. He was doing the crack filling and seal coating piece of it. Yes, there are roads, and you can drive around and you can see that there are subdivisions, there are individual homes that have installed concrete, and we don't go out and look for places to remove the concrete and replace it with asphalt. But as part of the paving program, if there is not concrete curb and gutter, that is the standard practice. You know, there may be some cases where where there are exceptions to that for various reasons. And we could come back and I could have, one of our road engineers give a more detailed presentation on why this is a policy, why we do it this way. But it is the village policy and practice.
I mean, the point being, we would never replace a concrete apron.
Correct. And that may be where the comment about pinching pennies, I think that is an issue of an expense for the village, that
Oh, it'd be a terrible expense.
the village policy has been that if
Yeah.
people do put concrete in the right of way, when we do our work, if it is necessary to remove those aprons, then we replace it with asphalt. I guess one other thought, just from the conversations that I did have was with some of the engineers involved with the projects, and Trustee Myers mentioned the fact that this road, the finished layer of asphalt was never constructed. It
Mhm.
was, the binder layer was put down in 2010. The finished layer was never put on. The driveway aprons were constructed to match up with the binder layer.
Mhm.
And now when the final layer of asphalt was put in, it would not have matched up exactly with the driveway aprons as they were put in. So that may be one reason. I mean, again, we try to avoid this where we can, but in this case, it was part of the design that was done by the engineer who prepared the plans, and
Okay.
it was done in consistently with village policies.
And our village policy, when somebody comes, they should get a permit to put a driveway in, correct? That's clearly stated.
Correct.
Okay.
There's a 13-year gap between now and then. So like, how long do you wait to decide? If you want a concrete driveway all the way to the apron, which tons of people do, knowing that they run the risk that if you come in and replace something, you'll replace with asphalt. But, how long do you wait for you guys to come in and finish the road? So the one thing I was going to add that I forgot was, not only did you didn't replace with asphalt though, you ground 3/4 of an inch off the top of our concrete driveways. You didn't take it out, and then you smeared a little bit of asphalt on top of there.
Mhm.
I can assure you that is not going to last. It's not going to bind very well. Water will get underneath there, freeze it, pop it, it'll make a mess. And I've been told that's my driveway now. So you didn't replace with asphalt. You halfway gave me a combination of a concrete with 3/4 inch and asphalt on top that won't last, that now I'm going to have to replace very, very soon. So you didn't even replace with asphalt. You halfway replaced with asphalt.
And Mr. Dembski, that's the apron you're talking about, correct?
Correct.
So it is still the village's issue if something does happen to it.
That's not what I'm told. I'm told I maintain the right of way.
The residents are responsible. When we say maintaining, we're talking about things like removing snow and ice. If it needs to be replaced as part of the road maintenance, then it is the village's responsibility. If there is other degradation or things that aren't necessarily a failure, but things that you don't necessarily want in your driveway, then that would be the homeowner's responsibility.
Like broken up chunks of asphalt, if my apron breaks up into chunks before the road does, that's on me to fix.
I guess it depends on the level of broken up and what you find acceptable versus what the village would typically replace.
I mean, no amount of broken up would be acceptable. So I think it's going to be on me to replace it, is sort of what I'm hearing, and it's an inferior product.
Now, what is the name of your subdivision?
Country Bell Manor, I believe.
Okay, and the developer there never finished the surface. Wasn't it a developer issue? It wasn't a village issue. The money ran out or something, right?
And again, we weren't able to find exactly what had occurred in 2010, but it was a
Yeah.
developer project. The
Yeah.
developer did not complete the road as. they
We had to do
expected.
what we could within the budget, yeah.
Hi, my name is Renee Yuckum. My address is W217 N11262 South Manor. I'm also a resident at South Manor in Country Bell Manor. I reiterate the comments that Mr. Dempsey was speaking of. The aprons, I'm not an engineer, I'm a nurse, so I don't know all of the particulars about it, but what I can tell you is that as the project started and continued, it went from bad to worse, and now it looks horrific. The aprons weren't as bad as actually what I thought they were going to be when we got home and saw them. But my concern is how the materials will work together. We've got the pulverized concrete underneath the asphalt. We know what the temperature extremes are in Wisconsin. What is that going to do? If that wasn't an expense that the village was willing to incur the first time around, when it comes to a point where this is now broken up or whatever the levels need to be, is the village going to be willing to incur that cost the next time around? Why wouldn't we have just done it right? In addition, the sides, I don't know exactly what not the skirting, I don't know what it would be called on the road, are completely mismatched to the road, and it looks like it's patchwork. I've walked my dog through there and there's big gouges in the road because there was really poor communication about when this was going to be done. It was done on like a 90-degree day, and the next day the garbage truck came through. In our cul-de-sac, it requires the garbage truck to back up, turn back around. So there's huge divots. My son can ride his bike and hit the divot and fly off his bike if he's not watching. And that's throughout the whole neighborhood. So it ultimately looks really sloppy. Again, I'm not an engineer. I don't know what the requirements were to do the project, but aesthetically, it looks really bad, and it's a nice neighborhood. So
I appreciate your comments. Thank you. I think, I know this is nothing we're voting on tonight. This is for information, but I do think, Steve, if we could speak to the engineer, have them review this subdivision and the quality of the work, and come back and report to us at our next meeting, I would appreciate that, because I need to know what's going on there. My eyes too, I'm not an engineer, so when I see it, I say, hey, what's this really supposed to look like? But I think minimally, that's what we should do. A committee, please weigh in.
Yeah, I fully agree. If there's some issues with it now, and divots, like it was just mentioned, I think we need to review that, look at it, and of course, take corrective action if that's the case. And if the sides, don't match up, typically we put down some more, siding, gravel, whatever you call it, or that, right?
Well, and for some of these specific complaints, we can have our inspector go out,
Hey, can I
get
comment
this
to what
week.
you're staying there? My name's Randy Melky. I live at N113 W2902 North Manor Court. When I put my driveway in, I asked a specific question when they come and put the top layer in. They told me that would be milled out and it would match. That's not what happened here. The other thing that we have, I have an 88-year-old mother-in-law that lives with us. She goes out to the mailbox. Now there's not a flat transition to the mailbox. It's a steep grade to the mailbox off the road. That's dangerous for her. And that goes all the way around the court. Sometimes there's 5-6 inches difference in the grade. That's huge. The thing that gets me the most is the curbs on the corners at the intersection. They matched up perfectly. They graded that out and spread stuff out. They could have matched the driveways easily just by pulling some of that aggregate that they ground up to the center of the road and not had that deep transition. I mean, it was a sloppy job. I don't know who was in charge here with the city, if you had anyone overseeing the project, but one thing I'd like to see as a resident is, what did the contract actually state to Payne and Dolan? Because I am an engineer, and that is a sloppy job.
I think
Okay.
the best action to take here is we'll get staff on it. We'll get it reviewed, and then,
Come back
decide
next
on what-
month and,
right, what
See what we're
corrective
gonna do.
action needs to be taken, because it sounds like some needs to be taken.
yeah.
So,
Thank you for your
appreciate it.
comments. Anybody else? Any comments from anyone else on the committee here? Nothing? Okay.
Jeff Meyer, I live at N113 W21858 North Manor Court. I too say it's a sloppy job as being generous. It's 5.5, 6 inches, and that's being generous, the drop. It is black sand that they put in and then pressed in to try and hold it. We have culverts. Our culverts are sitting at anywhere between a 30-degree to 45-degree angle. And now you put in a 45-degree angle of black sand. We can talk about the kids riding their bikes, what happens when they hit that. Better yet, how about the mail lady? Boy, before they got the sand in, I thought she was gonna either take out my mailbox or get stuck there and we'd have to pull it off of that 6-inch drop. Again, around the curbs, fine. The first house going into the subdivision, they lucked out. They had the state redo theirs when Appleton Avenue was done. Theirs was matched up perfectly.
Okay, thank you.
When I put in my driveway, I'm one of the few that built it here. They put in the driveway with a cutout section for this specifically, because we knew about the binding, that they were gonna come in and they were gonna finish the top. It was specifically told. I had 2-foot section that was all set, ready to be cut out. Not a 6.5-foot section ground away. I had a finished driveway. I paid for it. I built it. It was textured. And then it gets my blood pressure up when I go to Parkland Circle and I see stamped concrete driveways that weren't touched at all. Picking them winners and losers, it's not, I don't buy that it's village policy that this is how it's done. Because then it isn't village policy if one's done one way, one's done the other. I'd really like to, I haven't got answers yet. I'd like to see a list of inclusions for that right of way.
A list of, what do you mean by list of inclusions?
I've been told that there's a list of inclusions for the right of way. I've looked up my plat map on GIS. It doesn't even show a right of way on mine. My neighbor Randy, his shows a 15-foot for utility.
Steve, do you have any information on this, or do we have to wait for an engineer next time?
No, I don't have anything specific on that.
Yeah, I think the best we can offer you tonight is to say, we'll look into it. I
mean-
appreciate your concerns.
When they started pouring, and I said, hey, this is gonna be huge. What's going on here? The first thing I was told, we have 4-foot right of way. That was by, supposedly the project manager was Jake. He told me 4 feet. Later in the afternoon, other neighbors went and asked, they were told 6 feet. Then somebody went in and told them 20 feet, it goes past the culvert. I mean, the only other thing I'd like to mention is, we do have a neighbor who's not here today, who also built. He left the 8-foot apron gravel for 10 years. A year and a half ago, he finally put in concrete. We were told when we were at 75% occupancy, this was going to get done. That was pushing probably 8 years ago.
Yeah, I
If
think,
not longer. I was right around the 75% when I built. And we took into
Okay.
account all this stuff. It's really disheartening. It really
I,
is.
I can certainly hear your concern, and my heart goes out to you, because you create a beautiful home the way you want it, and then something like this
I mean,
happens.
you all are invited. I encourage you, like I've told Dennis, my
Mm-hmm.
trustee,
We've been through,
I invite
Mhm.
all the trustees to come over.
yeah.
Please.
I think a lot of us have already gone through. But
walk it.
what we can offer you tonight, sir, is that we will look into it. There's nothing else we can do for you tonight, okay? I'm hearing 2 concerns here. The first one, everybody knew who built a driveway that it would be covered by asphalt. So that to me is like on the shelf over here. But the second concern is if this is sloppy construction and if these aprons were not correctly done and they're going to fail early, that's a real concern of ours. And we have to see what's going on with that. And we'll have an engineer come out there and take a look at it, and more than one person will continue to drive that neighborhood and come back here in our next meeting in September to offer you our, hopefully, engineer's opinion on this and what went wrong. I would like to speak to somebody at Payne and Dolan too.
My apron, what they milled away, now puts an inch drop between the road and where my driveway is. And right at that base of that inch is right where the seam is between the asphalt and the concrete. Can't tell me, I mean, I can't be out there 24 hours a day scraping away ice. You know, I like my driveway clean. We don't drive on it till I plow it. I'm kind of anal about it. But there's no way I'm going to keep the water from not seeping under there, cracking, breaking. I mean,
We hear your concern. Thank you. Anybody else?
Kind of echoing the same thing. Gene Wish, North 113, West 21692 Bark Lake Road. My concerns is how far they raised the road up. I mean, 5 inches, 6 inches. They chiseled my driveway maybe 2 inches, and then they put the asphalt over that. The driveway wasn't removed. The cement was just kind of, I got all kind of chips along the edges where they did it. They put asphalt in my decorative rock next to my driveway, which I already came in and complained about it. I mean, it was just done. And then they put this berm along the edge. They raised up the road, and then they put this soft agate or whatever it was on the side of the road, and then they tampered that down. It's all around my mailbox, the base of my mailbox, up my mailbox pole about this far, 4 inches, and then they just tampered it down. I mean, you walk on it and stuff starts shifting.
Mhm.
It's just poor. It was just,
Okay.
and I just can't see how this was inspected by the village and passed. And that's my concerns. I just want to be put on record as
Thank you for that.
mine.
And we will absolutely look into this, and you're all invited back here. It'll be the first Wednesday, I guess, in September, more than likely will be our next meeting. And just call us and we'll let you know when it is. But we're going to have something to discuss at our next meeting regarding this, okay? Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Connor Fallon. I live at I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, W217, N11262, South Manor Court. I was riding my bike and, this is about the roads. There's like gravel alongside both sides of the road. Then there's the road itself. And it's like this big of like a drop off. There was a divot or like a hole in the road. I was trying to dodge and I fell off because there's such a big drop off
Mhm.
to the gravel. Actually, skinned my arm here. It's healed
Mhm.
now because this was less than a week ago, but I also have there and there when I
Mhm.
fell off.
Because it drops off so abruptly.
And that's what I asked is maybe that can be fixed with like
Yeah.
a little ramp system. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah.
Thank you for your comments, and we are definitely going to take a look at that too. To me, I'm hearing more complaints about sloppy construction more than anything else that we have to take a look at. And we will definitely do that. And if you can come back, thank you for your comments. And if you can come back in September, that would be awesome too.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, it is on TV. It's just that you have to just yell in here, but they can hear it on TV.
One thing I wanted to mention is 4 years ago, when Eric was an engineer, he changed what we used to do with the side of the roads with putting just gravel down. What we end up doing now is we put down ground up asphalt, and that's what we put down on the side.
Thank you. Anybody else on this topic? Okay, I invite you back in September. We're going to do a lot of homework on this, okay? I can assure that we will do that, and hopefully we will have some answers for you, okay? So please do come back, and we'll do our best for you. Thank you for coming tonight. I would entertain a motion to, there are some people that have to leave early, to move J up to replace B at this point in time.
We'll make a motion to move item J in front of item B.
Second.
We'll vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. J it is, and item J is Recreation Trail and Design for East Donjas Bay Road Construction Project.
Good evening. I'm Gil Stanridge, Parks and Recreation Director for the Village of Germantown. And I'm here tonight. The Park and Recreation Commission made a recommendation to the Public Works Department and Public Works Commission to modify the Donges Bay Road plans to include an 8-foot wide path from Wasaki Road to the point where the access crosses Donges Bay North to the new sidewalk on the east side of Washington Drive. This was based on conversations and correspondence with the city of Mequon and attempting to follow what their recommendation has been in the past. Asphalt path on the south side of Donges Bay from Lemke Park to Wasaki Road in the city of Mequon. Tonight I've invited Steve Stapleman. He is also on the Park and Rec Commission, and he is also, we have a Parks Trails Committee, a volunteer committee that he's also represented, that also wishes to make some comments on this request. Steve?
Hello, everyone. Steve Stapleman at N101W16478 Santa Fe Drive. And I did walk this the other day, and boy, that is challenging. Wow, there's that fire hydrant. I have no idea how they got that in there with that 8-foot cliff. But this is just kind of stress, this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity for Germantown to connect, put the path forward to connect to the interurban path, which is, there's about 1.5 miles to Lemke Field down the big hill. And Mequon does have this as the 12th item on their list out of 14 to address connection. Now, granted, there's only a couple homes there, so that's probably not tops on their list. But to have Germantown connect, be kind of the center point into the interurban pathway and down south to the bug line is huge. And understood, I've talked to Mr. Krecklow and Depis. Sure, an 8-foot wide path is the ultimate goal. That's not going to happen here. It's too, but if you could ask Grafe to look at possibly looking at 7, 6, and even a 5-foot, and we're asking also to change the concrete to be asphalt. Bikers don't work, and I understand there's a 6-foot bike lane proposed in the roadway, and the utilities are there. But if you could ask Grafe to really, really dig deep into a bike lane, a separate side path bike lane. And I've rid this for 25 years for worked in Mequon. I've gotten 10 flat tires, just because there's a lot of glass on that Waste Management has a lot of glass, and bike tires will pop like a second on there. So having this side path is just ideal. It's a challenge. I guarantee it. I walked it. I'm like, wow, this is a little more challenging than I thought. And I was hoping that sidewalk would go where that fire hydrant is, would go on top of the hill. And Steve mentioned, no, it's not going there. It's going down next to the roadway where the fire hydrant and the 8-foot cliff is. Understood that it's challenging, but here's the one chance to make it an asphalt from concrete and as wide as possible and a separate side path. It would be huge. I just, for this to happen and to connect the two cities and the bike paths. Really don't have anything else to get. It is what it is. I understood, but it is an opportunity. And it'd be very welcoming from Mequon to see a 6-foot path at the top of the hill, and they'd probably do the same, or even an 8-foot. But thank you for your consideration, and thanks, Gil.
Hey, Steve, before you leave, one question. So is your recommendation you said you don't want the concrete sidewalk?
No, we want asphalt.
You'd rather have asphalt path?
Yep.
So replace the sidewalk with the path? Is that what you're asking about?
Yep. And to make it as wide as possible.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
If
what
you
you're
can't do
proposing.
8, 8's always the goal, but can you do 7? Can you do 6? What is the maximum that you could do? And maybe have Grafe to put a 6,
Okay.
and go, all the way up to the top of the hill, because Mequon's gonna come through. They want to connect to the interurban trail. They want their residents to.
Right, go to Wasaki, all the way
Yeah.
to Wasaki.
They're planning, and that's gonna be a challenge. Those ditches on the other side of the hill down are, just as challenging as what we have going up. But,
Okay.
Thank,
no, thank you.
Steve, would you please give us a report on this? I think timing is an issue, and cost is probably a secondary issue, but let us know what your thoughts are.
Sure, sure. And I think, I think as Gil and Mr. Stapleton mentioned, the 8 foot, I think, would be a challenge. And if you go out on that site, there's issues with wetlands, there's issues with grades. The current design does include within the road, depending upon how you measure, up to a 7 foot path on each side of the road for bikes, which would be painted and set aside for bike traffic, as well as a 5 foot sidewalk that will go all the way up to Ozaki Road. I think, making that asphalt, I don't see a reason why we couldn't make that asphalt instead of a concrete sidewalk. And we can go back with Grafe. There are some sections where I think 5 feet is as wide as is possible, but there probably are some other sections where we could add a foot or two and make it a little bit wider. So those are things that we could do. Go back and take another look.
Do we have time to take another look then?
For that, we do. We are well into the design, but I think these are relatively minor changes, and it's not going out to bid until January.
Oh, we got tons of time.
Yeah, the main issue is if we were looking at going at trying to accomplish an 8 foot path the entire route, we'd have to go back and work with the DNR because there would be some additional.
That would take a long time.
Encroachment, and that's what would really take us a while.
I totally agree with you, Steve. Anybody trying to bike on Fond du Lac Avenue, you do it once and you don't do it again. What's wrong with you? Because you always have a flat tire. I mean, I've gone through that same experience, and that is a very difficult area because of waste management. And the more we could get something off the road, the better off we would be. And if we have time, Steve, this is my personal opinion, but obviously we have to vote on it. I would like to at least look into it, cost-wise and everything, if we could afford it, and get it off the road where we're not having garbage and glass and everything else, and make it a little bit safer for everybody. I'm totally behind that. Committee? Rick?
Yeah, same here. I am not a fan of having bike trails on the road. That's a compromise at best, and I just don't like it at all. So if we can make this a trail rather than a sidewalk, I think it'll be better utilized. And I think that's probably the best route to go. The other thing is, yeah, make it as wide as possible. If it is only 5 feet and that's it, okay. Fine, because I agree we don't need to get in with the DNR and try to widen it to 8 feet. That's gonna really
That'd be another
small
year.
things and be another cost
Yeah.
consideration on this thing. But any type of path, I think, would be best off the road.
Please.
So I've actually biked and run up this hill hundreds, maybe honestly over 1,000 times since I've lived here. Running and biking on that road is terrifying, and that's today and right now. With the new Public Works building and then the additional tenants that's going on there, it's not going to get any better and it's not going to get any safer on that road. The wisdom of moving this off to the south side of the road is irrefutable. And Steve's right. Now is the time to do this, and it is forward thinking. So I recommend we go ahead and do that. And I'd make a motion if I knew how to phrase one.
You want me to take a crack at it? Because we have to be careful in my opinion, how we do this. I would like to direct staff to look into creating a recreational path alongside the road, the largest width that we possibly can do, and come and report back to us at our hopefully our next committee meeting. In lieu of a concrete sidewalk on both, that's part of the road.
I'll second that.
On the south side, right?
We'll say south side, because that's where the bike path is.
That's great.
Okay, who's the second, Rick? Any more comments from anyone here? Sure, go ahead, Steve. Oh, you gotta come up, you gotta come up to the mic, sorry.
Even if it did take a year, I'm fine with that.
Well, see, we have to
No, I
fall
understand,
within,
but
because of the
sidewalks probably
construction
go in
and,
last.
yeah.
The side path or
Yeah.
the path. And
no.
just in case, and maybe ask Grafe to say, well, why couldn't we put it on, that fire hydrant is right below that 8-foot cliff. It's unreal. It's like, wow.
For future grade.
Why don't we go up on top of the hill? And the city owns all that land, I'm assuming. And sure, you may back it off 15 feet, just a thought, if it doesn't happen, but say, think outside the box and, sidewalks always go right next to the road.
We don't
But
care.
Side paths
Yeah.
can wind a little bit.
Yeah,
And maybe they come
Makes
back,
them nicer.
come down the hill and up on top and then down back through into the driveway of the utility. Just a thought.
thank you, Steve.
No, I apologize.
Isn't the plan to put a sidewalk north-south on Wasaki?
Both sides, yeah.
On one side.
On Wasaki?
On Wasaki,
Yeah,
Yeah, that's my question.
that section of Wazaki is actually, Mequon's section of Wazaki, so,
On the
No.
west side
yeah. Yeah, it's the way it's,
of land? That's ours. We're developing that lot right now.
goes south and I rock. And
But it's jurisdictional.
yeah, jurisdictional.
Part of the road is our responsibility.
Yeah,
But the land where we are developing the business park right now, isn't the plan to put a sidewalk
oh, I see.
going north-south on Wasaki on the west
Going
side?
south from Donjas Bay along that side.
North-south. That's
I-
my question.
I don't recall. I don't recall if there was a sidewalk included in that plan or not.
If that is the plan, then I would think we would want to change that and continue with the asphalt path around the corner. Because that's a trail there. And that's what we have on Donjas Bay. And we're not that far away from connecting that. And then at some time, Mequon is going to run up to Wasaki. And then you have a connecting trail back down Wasaki into that wetlandish area there, for lack of a better term. Just a thought.
I think directionally to know that and have that in the minutes so we follow up on that. I mean, we really should take a look at what Mequon has done and Grafe has to look at that and see how this would all match up. But, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, moving back up to B, engineering contract service agreement for rehabilitation and painting of water tower number 3.
Good evening. So before you tonight, I was requested by the Public Works Committee to get 3 competitive bids for engineering services to provide contract documents for the rehabilitation and painting of tower number 3 on Mequon Road. 3 engineering firms sent in proposals, and the results are as follows. Rukert and Milky came in at $42,400. Grafe's proposal was $40,100, and the low bid was Foth at $39,953. Foth is our current design firm for the new tower on Gateway Crossing and retains our current design standards and specifications, and is still in the design phase of the new logo with McGuire Iron and Steel, which would be my recommendation logo for tower number 3 unless otherwise directed. Scope of services include preliminary design, plans and specifications, DNR submittals, bidding, and recommendation letter of the low bid painting contractor.
Ready?
Well, what was the one bid that you had last month? Which one was that of the 3?
That was Foth.
It was, okay.
I asked them if they wanted to sharpen their pencil, and they
So
did
they did.
Yeah.
What happens if we ask them again?
that. They might not do it, but
They'll say no.
Committee, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to award the contract to Foth in the amount not to exceed $39,953 from account 507425306720.
I'll second that.
Further discussion, questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, this is yours too, Paul, right? Wellhead Protection Security Fence.
As presented to the Public Works Committee in a PowerPoint presentation back on April 5th, we requested permission to install a wellhead protection security fence around well 5 and 7. It was pulled from the full board agenda due to this project required to be publicly bid by the recommendation of the village attorney. After it went out to publicly bid, we received 2 bidders, and the bidding results are as follows. Century Fence Company came in at $59,722, and the low bid was Munson Inc. at $48,464.
I'm just quickly looking at this, Paul. How tall was this fence again? I know it's in here,
It's
but,
a 6-foot.
okay, and the perimeter is
It's around both buildings.
pretty big.
It is pretty
Yeah,
large, yes.
Okay. I see it here, 20 feet wide. Okay, committee?
Make a motion to award the contract to Munson Inc. not to exceed the amount of $48,464 from account 50-180-184-3310.
Second.
Questions?
That does not include then, right, the barbed wire? on the-
We left it as an alternate.
Yeah.
At this time, we wanted to keep it
Yeah.
semi.
That barbed wire sounds
Yeah,
scary.
Like a
Mm.
If we
military.
get fence jumpers, I might, it is in our spending authority after this has been approved, so
Yeah.
we have it at another well house, but I think
Yeah.
we want it this time.
Thank you.
Any more questions or comments? We'll vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. We'll move on to D, well number 7, change order.
So during the bidding process, the low bidder missed an item that is required to complete the MCC work, which was to include the installation of a VFD, which is a variable speed drive. What was missed was a NEMA cabinet enclosure. If this was not missed, the cost would have been included in the total cost of the project. So basically, the contractor is asking for it after the fact. As a side note, due to material delays, we found out that the VFD delivery date is about a year out, July, September of next year. We have an option to remove the old VFD that is existing in the panel and reinstall it temporarily until the new one arrives. And the quote is attached, but we believe it's a better use of the utility funds to wait till everything is on site and install it when it arrives.
Paul, I have a question. How could they have possibly missed a significant element in the bidding process? Question A. And how would this have affected the bids? Would this still have been your low bidder?
Good question. That's exactly what we asked, and there was no really good answer. It was just missed.
Would they still have been the low bidder?
Yes, they would. There was 2 bidders, Pieper Electric and this Jay Miller, and Pieper didn't even provide a quote for it.
Okay, well, that at least makes me feel minimally better. Yes.
Did they, was it included in the specs and they just forgot to include the price? Or did they forget?
There was
completely?
a base bid for a VFD. This VFD has to be in a NEMA cabinet. Somehow wires got crossed during the bidding process.
How many bidders did we have?
2,
How many missed it?
1.
Just one bid.
Only one bid. We only received 1 bid. Side note, if this helps at all, we did have to replace the VFD at well 5. I don't know if you remember, it was struck by lightning. It was an insurance claim. That VFD cost $29,000. This one actually is cheaper for whatever reason. It's with the cabinet. It would have been a price of $25,000. But we're only asking for $11,356. Or I should say they are.
Committee?
Just one question. So we're talking about replacing this, but the VFD won't be available until a little over a year from now.
Correct.
So you're not going to use the old one and there won't be a new one. So it'll,
Correct. There's components that we're still waiting for. The MCC still hasn't been delivered. The panel inside has to be built. So there's significant delays in other materials, but this is the largest delay. So the old VFD still works. The well house is still operational. The recommendation we got from our electrical consultant is you can roll the dice and pull the old one out and install it when all the components come in. And then when the new VFD comes in, you literally have to take the old one out and put the new one in. But we're rolling the dice, and if something goes wrong, we could have a well offline, and we didn't want to do that.
I'll reluctantly make a motion to approve the change order to J. Miller Electric in the amount of $11,356 from account 501801823900.
I'll reluctantly second that.
Any more comments? Rick?
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. They bid it.
Yeah.
I agree. I think, Rick, what we're trying to do is save a relationship with a good contractor. They've done work for us in the past. We couldn't do it without the NEMA cabinet. It would have been included on the upfront if they didn't miss it. So it's not like, oh, hey, we low bid it, now we got to get some extra cash. This cabinet is a pass through. It's a straight order through. We're not paying any markup on it.
Paul, I'm hearing that the bid specs really didn't specify this because this is kind of a unique situation.
I wouldn't say it's no. I think it was in there.
Oh, it was in there.
Yeah, well, absolutely, yeah. He just, they gave it, I think what they gave it in is a base bid for a VFD. And for whatever reason, they didn't do their due diligence, basically.
That it needed this cabinet.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay, so,
Well,
Somebody else comment.
so the logical question we have to ask is, what if we deny this? What's going to happen? So that's the question we should ask, right?
Bid it over and they may put it higher.
Yeah, I guess that would be maybe more an attorney question. I guess I don't know the legalities of omitting something, but we need it to finish the project.
Get it from somewhere sometime.
So
And
the
next
for-
year it'll probably cost more.
Yeah.
And attorney fees.
I don't know if you're, to force them to eat 11 grand.
Yeah.
Again, we're trying to salvage a relationship. I wouldn't say they were very sheepish about it, but they did feel bad that it happened. I mean, they didn't want it to happen.
We're trying to salvage it.
I'm trying to salvage a relationship. And I think they're a good contractor. They've done work for us in the village before. And you direct me what you want to do. And if it's something you want me to ask the village attorney, I will. We believe it's a fair ask if it was something that was missed.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any more comments? Rick, you look like you're aching to say something.
I mean, I tend to think that this is a legal matter. And I don't know if they're contractually obligated. I would think they are contractually obligated to provide this. Only missed it. Now, morally, that's a whole different thing. What do we do about it?
I guess as a sort of, you need this. If we wait too long, it's going to cost us more. I don't know what the legal fees are, but for our village attorney to at least take a look at this, it would not be significant. Would they be willing to kind of split the difference on this and throw some money and get some skin in the game for their mistake? I guess is my question. I mean, if they were willing to come up with like $3,000-$4,000 towards this as their error, I think we'd all find it much more palatable.
Well, from what I'm hearing, though, is that it's passed through instead of a markup.
Yeah.
So that's their.
There is no mark.
We've totally paid them for everything?
No, we have not paid them for this yet.
Well, then there's still money to be had. I throw that back at you, Paul.
I can ask the question. We can ask it through the attorney. We can look at our bid documents to make sure.
I think if it's possible to postpone this until September, Let's take a look at everything and come back with a report on this, because I'm with them. I'm very reluctant on this. When people miss bids, miss something in a bid, I mean, I would no longer be working if I did that in my job. I would no longer be working for that company. And to me, this is serious enough with budgets the way they are, that, yeah, I think they should put a little skin in the game here from wherever they want to take it from. And if they came back with a proposal like that, and I'm not talking even about 50%, I'm talking about, come on, you screwed up here, help us.
Give me a dollar amount. 3, 4?
4. I'd say 4.
Okay.
That would make me happy.
Okay.
And I could convince my fellow committee members, they should be happy. At least I'll take that risk. But I mean, something.
What's parliamentary procedure though? Because we have a motion on, but we really want to postpone. Oh, yeah.
Well, you could just take your motions off the floor and your second. That's
So-
the easiest.
So, you know, if you say 4 is going to make you happy, that's your starting point, and you're not going to end up with 4. Right.
So
So,
4 is my starting and ending point for me personally.
so it's a one-shot deal. So
Yeah.
if they come back and say
They could say more.
3750,
They could say, hey,
you're up.
look, it's our fault. We want to split it 50% with you.
what if they say $3,000?
It's coming back to committee. We'll figure it out, but they have to know that we're really kind of ticked off here and that this is inappropriate for them to have missed this. And now we're stuck having to foot the bill.
How much business do we do with these guys every year?
Me personally, I think they have done other work within the village. I've been here 6 years. I haven't had them here
Village
yet.
administrator?
I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. I haven't seen anything, any other business that we've done with them, but.
We can
I'll withdraw the motion.
withdraw the second in the motion. I will make a motion to postpone this issue until the September meeting with,
Yeah.
table. Normally you can postpone.
We can't discuss.
No, they're not.
No,
I want to postpone it. Table, we can't have any discussion. I want to postpone it until our next meeting, okay? And allow Paul a chance to go back and discuss this with this particular contractor who presumably wants to continue to do business with Germantown, and just see what we can get with them. And at the same time, we're going to share this with our legal department and take a look at the bidding process. Okay?
All right, I'll do my homework.
That was a long, drawn-out motion. I'm sorry. Motion and a second. Any more comments? No vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Moving on to the 5-year capital improvement plan, and I guess this is just a take a look thing, right?
Yeah, I can present this. This was one of the last projects that Director Ratajczyk worked on or finalized before his retirement. And this includes from 23 to 2027 potential capital projects for all village departments. I'll give some highlights. It includes the construction of a new police station in 2025 at $17 million. Expansion of the second floor of the library in 2027 at $3 million. And it keeps road funding at $1.5 million per year, as we have over the last several years. And it includes, as we've been getting better at 5-year planning, we've got more information on the water and sewer utilities and the projects that they have planned in the future. We do have, if you look at the bottom of the report, the under buildings, we did include sort of a plug number going forward. We're working on more specific long-term plans for our facilities. But, you know, looking at what we've spent over the past few years, as well as some of the data that we have on things that'll be necessary over the next 3, 4, 5 years, we'll probably need about $500,000 per year. And I think the next time you see this, we're hoping to have some more detail on the specifics of which projects and which facilities that money would be utilized for.
So Steve, this is kind of a loose plan is what I'm thinking. This was Larry, who retired, actually put this together. And normally our village administrator takes a pretty serious role in this as well. And so I am just looking at this as sort of a sketch. I don't know if that's how I should be looking at it, but to me, it's maybe in a hard, something, a better pencil than a number two, but it's still a sketch until we all take a look at this more seriously, especially in tune with the economy and budgets and all that type of thing. Go ahead, Phil.
So one of the things I want to point out that I think we need to change, so including $1.5 million, and I'm not picking on the road project, right? But $1.5 million in today's dollars is worth far more than $1.5 million five years out, right? So when we do things like this, and I understand that inflation is somewhat of a variable, we should be calculating for inflation, right? Unless the goal is to provide less maintenance for our street 5 years out than today. Because 1.5 million 5 years from now isn't going to buy what 1.5 does today.
You know, that question or that comment is one that actually, if you go to a Government Finance Officers Association conference, there will be panels that'll talk about how to handle inflation in 5-year plans. And there's a couple of different schools of thought. You know, some communities do project out inflation and incorporate that in. Others find that to be confusing. Not so much on something like the road program where it's $1.5 million each year, but you know, it's difficult enough, say for the library project, which is 2027, a few years out, to try to project exactly what that amount would be, and then on top of that to add inflation. So
Well, yes, and I fortunately don't attend those conventions. You know, so is that $3 million in today's money? Because that's not gonna work.
that is what the out years illustrate is what the projects would cost if they were done today. So, you know, it's to, the purposes of having a 5-year plan are, you know, one of them is to assist with financial planning and
Placeholders.
to do that. Another part of it is coordination, and that's actually something that gets overlooked a lot in 5-year plans, like figuring out, say for example, with the police department and the library. We're looking at doing the police department in first, in part because that's the priority that's been voiced by the village board, but also for staging purposes, when the library, if we go forward with that, is under construction, the police annex would provide a space to move library operations while the library project is underway. So it can be utilized for that. It's important as we look at the water and the sewer and the road program that we have projected out what are the interrelationships there. So it's also for timing. So yes, and you make a very good point that if you look at the out years, we need to take into consideration that there's going to be inflation and those projects are going to cost more than what's listed on this spreadsheet. You know, this particular spreadsheet, and it's something we can do it either way. We could build in inflationary factors going forward, but then it's a question of, well, what's the assumption? Do we look at the inflation averages over the past 5 years and project out? There are some different indexes we could use, but then that can become kind of another topic of debate and discussion.
I think for me, Phil, it's a really good question, but I think we can make the assumption that 1.5 isn't going to be 1.5 in 26 here, or 2027.
Well, so the reason I bring this up is how many years have we been spending a flat $1.5 million?
It's just been 1.2, so.
2.2, this because of the ARPA funds, right? But
I mean, no, in the past, I've been doing this for like 13 years, and we used to spend $1 million, then it was 1.2, and now it's 1.5 or whatever it is. So it does keep moving up, yeah. No,
Oh, okay.
I'm going to tell you, it's your turn.
Thank
Okay.
you. Melanie Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. Someone brought it up, but it's on these kinds of plans, which I deal with all the time. it's really great to have a list of what the assumptions are. So that would be an assumption to say that there's no look at the value of future money. And so that's a really good point. One of the things that was brought up at the last village board was that perhaps we should be rethinking and joining the village library and the police department, considering that costs to do the remediation and bring utilities to the old DPW site might actually be more than dealing with what's there now, because you don't have those utility costs and you don't have the remediation. So I think that needs to be thought about as part of this and part of the coordination of what the actual projects need to get done. And the last thing, and this is something that we requested last year, as the whole utility discussion came up, what are the 5-year budget placeholders for utility maintenance, roadway maintenance? Those kinds of costs should be in here as well, because you can't just look at them in a vacuum. Those are dollars that have never been quantified in any meeting that I've heard of. And I've asked both of the people in charge of the utilities, and they have never been asked to do a 5-year plan for preventative maintenance or costs associated with their own utilities. And whether they can be accurate or not, they still know that at some point a lift station will have to be replaced, and it's X amount of dollars in today's dollars. And I think, if nothing else, that kind of information as a line item should be part of your assumptions and things to consider. Otherwise, this is, as you said, a snapshot and a sketch, but it's a great start. So I will say that. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Committee, back to us. Rick?
I just had a couple questions. First off, I kind of look at this as just like the road improvement plan,
Mhm.
right? Every year it adjusts
Mhm.
as we go. Is this a rolling 5 years? So next year we'll go to 28
Yes,
and then do this and review everything and then adjust numbers, right?
yes.
Okay.
It-
That's what I thought.
And if I could just add, so in some areas, we report this and we pull it all together in a 5-year plan. Some areas, we have longer plans. Like one of the things that village staff does really well is looking at equipment and making sure there's replacement cycles. So, the fire chief he has a spreadsheet that has every piece of equipment they have and when it's
Very
due to be
thorough.
replaced. And the highways, buildings and grounds superintendent has the same thing for all of their equipment, and the other superintendents do a good job of that as well. So there are some pieces, we're pulling it all together just for 5 years, because there's a lot of places, a lot of areas we don't have that kind of information, but there are some longer term plans out there too.
The other thing that struck me is that and it's a line item, the patrol squads, 24 in the fleet, replace 2 per year. That's a 12-year cycle. That can't be sustained, can it?
Those patrol squads get used hard.
Right.
Can they last?
I can't imagine they're lasting 12 years.
Yeah. And that is something we get to budget time. We can talk further with the police chief about it, but that's the cycle that we've been on, for the past few years.
Yeah, I'd have him revisit that. But I think this is very thorough, to you and Larry's credit, because it does include virtually every department, including wastewater and water and everything, and recreation. Like you said, this is much like our 5-year road plan. Things come up, things shift, and we just have to be flexible. But this is kind of our dream. So hopefully we can at least keep these placeholders, even if it can't be done in 1 year, that moves out to the next or whatever. Phil?
Why do we have 24 patrol cars? How many police officers do we have?
We have, I believe it's roughly 40.
And how many do we have working at one time?
It varies by shift, I think. And there's also different officers. I mean, in addition to the patrol officers, there's sergeant, lieutenant, there's detectives.
Yeah.
That would be a question, and you could follow up with the police chief.
Or the head of the Public Safety Committee.
Well, that would be me.
No. I know.
I was looking for
It's
somebody
a,
that
it's a
knew
good
the
question.
answer to the
I don't
question.
have the
Jay.
answer to it off the top of my
That
head.
is a good question.
Yeah, I mean, maybe shorten the replacement life and not have so many cars.
It is a good thing to look at. And I know actually one of the things I've found in other places, sometimes, and I don't know this is a situation with the police department, but sometimes departments will keep extras for, spares to have on hand, but then it costs money to maintain those spares. And you're better off just shortening the replacement cycle, spending the money in that routine. So it's a good question. We can follow up with the police chief.
Yeah, with budget time coming, it might be something he could take a look at. Any other comments? This is just for information only.
Yeah, I would just ask, I looked through this very quickly and this is very nice to have. It's good to see this laid out, but I think Larry, put in my pet peeve in here, the stump grinder, which I think we voted down, earlier this year. So that 93,000 can come out of the 2023 capital improvement budget. It's under Parks and Recreation now.
Yeah, I see that. So, yeah, we can shift that and that'll,
I'll tell my, watching for that.
Hey, you never know. The board might have a whole different opinion this year about stumps. So just let them take another look at it. Any more comments? If not, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is F Street Development Agreement.
I can introduce that and answer any questions you might have. This is related to the development, the private development on Donjas Bay and Wazaki. This development agreement is, actually, it doesn't cover as much as maybe some of the others that have come through, because if you recall, earlier this year, the village board adopted a sale of property agreement with F Street. So much of what we oftentimes cover in development agreements was covered in that sale of property that was approved earlier this year. There are a couple of blank forms here that we're still compiling, and we're working to get those completed before the village board meeting on Monday. Some of the schedules that include the fees that the developer will be paying as part of the development agreement.
So you want us to approve this without those being in there?
I would request that, and even if it was separate action under the village board, that we could at least keep the process moving forward.
Okay. And this does appear to be pretty standard. This looks like the other development agreements that come through for just about everything. Committee?
Make a motion to approve the developer's agreement with a positive recommendation to the village board.
I'll second that.
Questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Moving on to G, role of the Utility Advisory Committee. This is yours, Steve.
Yeah, I can introduce it. I know we have a member of the advisory committee as well as the chair here as well. But at our last meeting of the Utility Advisory Committee, there was some discussion that took place at the end regarding, it started out with scheduling the next meeting and what the meeting schedule would look like for the Utility Advisory Committee. And I think what became clear, sort of the root question, was what the role of the Utility Advisory Committee is moving forward. And I think there's two schools of thought on this. One, and I think what historically the Utility Advisory Committee has been, was a committee that met on an ad hoc basis, basically at the request of this committee or the village board, to review specific issues and provide feedback. The other school of thought is that the Utility Advisory Committee could have a regular meeting schedule and with the committee members themselves driving the agenda and, selecting issues to have staff report back on. So, and it seemed that that was a question to really bring before the Public Works Committee as far as what role the Utility Advisory Committee should play going forward.
Who's our current chair?
That is Mr.
Okay.
Trustee Myers.
Okay. Do you have an opinion on it? To the administrator. So you're in agreement with? I mean, what does that mean? Okay, so I guess, okay, typically in my tenure, which goes 13, 14 years at this point, it's been advisory, that's why it's called advisory. It's the advisory capacity only, things sent to that committee to be looked at, and then that research or whatever brought back to us for action. That is how it's always been in my tenure, and it's worked well. So, and I'm just gonna, let's hear from you, Steve.
Oh, okay. Being a member of the committee, I'm Steve Wazalowski, and my address is W169 North 10427 Pheasant Run. And this item did catch my attention. That's why I'm here tonight. After and during our last utility meeting, there was some disagreement how often we should meet. Some people believe I believe we've had 4 meetings already for 2023. And one individual said, well, that's way too many meetings. What the hell are we meeting about? And I'm going, well, we have things that I think we want to discuss. And I guess my question here is, the new member that joined our committee said that we should only meet, like you said, when you have an issue that you want us to research and provide more input on. I think that's part of it. But to me, it sounds like you're throwing us a bone that here's something, go out and research it for us. I didn't volunteer for this committee just to be out there and operate in such a manner. I don't fetch bones. I don't roll over and play dead. I think you kind of gotten to know me. I'm pretty proactive.
That's silly. You know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know,
We're in agreement on that.
Okay. Proactive. I'm a thinker, analyzer, and I like to do things. So I understand that we're strictly an advisory committee, but that's all the more reason that I think that we should be able to scrutinize other utility topics. I mean, if my neighbor asks me some questions about something, I think maybe I should be able to bring that up and let's look at it at our level. And all that really means is at our level, we're going to discuss it at our meeting. And whether we think, if somebody thinks, hey, maybe this should be forwarded on, we'll make a motion to forward it on to your committee. If we discuss it and everybody says, no, the hell with it, well, then it doesn't come to you and it's done. But I think we should have an open communication at our level to look at other things that are utility related. That's how I feel about that. A couple of things that have disturbed me. Then when I started the committee in our first meeting, Rick Miller was our chair, and magically Rick Miller was reassigned off that committee. And
Happens every year.
I don't know why.
Happens every year. We get switched
Answer that
around.
question. And I do remember at one of our village board meetings, I asked the question that for our municipal code, there should be one of you should be on that committee. A trustee that is on that committee is not a member of the Public Works and Highway Committee. I asked that to Dean Wolter. I've never gotten a response. So tonight I'm asking it again. I'm just asking maybe one of you to go to Dean and say, hey, I'd like to be on the committee. I mean, we're not following our municipal code.
I think that's up to Dean and Steve to have that discussion, frankly, not up to us tonight. I think tonight we can talk about in general, whether we reach any decision or not, of how this committee should function. For example, we have a construction committee, correct, Steve?
Yeah, Building Oversight
The
Committee.
Building Oversight Committee, you could be the Utility Oversight Committee, whatever you want to call it. It's an assigned duty when we need help in that specific area. And you can ask us, hey, should we discuss this at a committee? You can bring things to us that you want to discuss. This is my opinion. It's not the opinion of my committee members here. But to my way of thinking and the way it's always worked the best is we end up with an issue here, whether it be a rate increase or something significant that we need either additional information on or different viewpoint on, that goes down to the committee level. And typically, in all the years I've been on the board, that advisory committee has probably met 2 to 3 times a year. Not even that much? Okay, not even that much. And has functioned very well. in that way. Now, I'm sorry that you think that you're only being thrown a bone if we ask you to do something on that committee. That's, not the case by any means. But that is how that committee has functioned, like I said, probably for 50 years. I'm not making that up. Committee members, do you have any comments or?
So I want to be little careful in my word choice. So, and perhaps the example that you mentioned was not the best. So if a neighbor comes to you and asks you a question, you think you should have the ability to chase that down. But that's what their trustee is supposed to do. So we're building a back door, or we're building a different way of communicating. And maybe that was just a bad example that you mentioned. Can you clarify that a little bit for me, please?
Well, if it's not per se the neighbor, it may be something that I would like to get more information about. One thing that I brought up, and I don't want to beat this to dead horse again, but last year I brought up about the sewer problem we had in Old Farm with the backups. And that got us rolling on some of this. I got active when I heard about how we were changing the rate, the sewer rate for our water consumption. That was definitely.
That's a good example. Yeah, yeah.
That was totally inappropriate what we were looking at. And my initiation of that led to discussions with you. We got it to our committee.
That was sent to your committee.
Yes.
It worked.
Yep.
Yes, and that's correct. And I'm not sure if it was really, I was going to ask you, I don't know if it was sent to our committee.
Yeah,
I
it
think
was.
it was initiated by our committee, and then you guys got.
No, it was sent.
You said.
It was
okay,
sent. Yeah.
Okay. And anyway, those are the kind of things that I guess if something comes up or is bothering me, and I get bothered a lot by different things in the community, but I'm an anal person too. So if I have an issue with something and it's utility related, I guess I want to know, understand it because of being an engineering individual.
So do you think, and this is just a discussion, and I'm not, this is not me being antagonistic, because I can do that much better than this. Do you think that you should have free rein to investigate any issue that annoys you?
Well,
Let me, I want to rephrase the question, because I'm making it personal, and I don't mean to do that. Do you think that the committee should have free rein to investigate any utility issue the committee chooses?
Well, I think if there's something that was bothering me at that level.
I'm trying not to make it personal, so
Sure.
don't use.
Okay. If, I think it can be brought forth to that committee at our level. So if one of our individuals comes with a topic and brings it there, then the question is, do we want to proceed or not? That's where you kind of, we take our vote. If somebody makes a motion, says, hey, I think this is important, let's proceed with it. 3-1, it loses. It's dead at that point. But
See, typically what would happen if somebody, whether it's somebody out in your world that has a problem, they would bring that to the Public Works Department. And it might be a department issue that can be handled on the phone. Very typically, we get a lot of those. You wouldn't believe how many things are solved that never come to a committee meeting. And if it can't be solved there, or if it's broader and affects more residents, then you would bring that to me at this point while I'm the head of this
Okay.
committee. And we would put it on the committee for further discussion. We would discuss it on the Public Works Committee. And at that point, if we decide it needs more research, or if we just can't quite wrap our arms around it, we send it to
Back to
the
us.
advisory committee. So you and you and you and you, anybody can bring something to us to see if we believe it should be on the committee, or if it can be resolved somewhere else with a simple phone call or a simple discussion. Not everything comes to the committee. There's a lot more happening behind the scenes to get work done here than what you see at a typical committee meeting. So, anybody else? Rick, you had comment?
I do have a little bit, just another.
Yeah.
I was going to say that since we've been meeting after Rick has moved on and we've got another leader of our committee, myself and another individual who's new to that committee, we have brought some questions, concerns, or items that we want to get onto the agenda. And we've been frankly told it's got to be reviewed by our village administrator.
Absolutely.
I don't agree with that.
I know you don't. But that's an advisory, that's what we're debating today. What is an advisory committee? You don't create your own agenda, is my position.
What is that the administrators who should dictate that? Maybe it should be you.
Maybe it should be all of us.
Well, I guess I'm thinking it should be you. If there's got to be somebody to look at it, then I think I should be able to come.
You'd
to-
probably rather have Steve look at it than me, but it could
Well,
be me.
I've been shot down, so that's why I'm asking. I
No,
think I got a better rapport with you.
Well, but I would be happy to look at anything that you would want to come to committee level and see what it was. Absolutely. I have
So-
no problem with being approached on things like that at all.
Sure. And I guess one last item, recently we had a new individual show up at one of our meetings. And he used to be a trustee. And my question on that, I know when I applied for this position in December, I wrote a little thing to the village clerk about myself and that. It went to Dean, who reviewed it, came in front of the village board, and you guys voted for me to be on this committee.
Mhm.
This other individual showed up and magically he's on the committee.
I have no idea. Bob Warren?
Right. Bob talked to me
Okay.
after that meeting, and I didn't want to bring up his name.
He was appointed. That's my understanding. Yeah.
But I was appointed too,
Mhm.
and then you guys voted on me. Who voted on Bob?
Was he on the agenda? He must have been.
wasn't
He had to be.
It was confirmed by the village
Yeah,
board.
it was on the consent agenda, I'm sure, if not somewhere else. Yeah. You could look back at the
Okay, I
agendas.
guess I'm trying to find one, okay,
Yeah.
but that didn't seem to be, we're just asking that question.
Okay.
Now, the very last thing is, one thing that we're doing the rate study right now, which is good for sewer rates. And I guess that really originated within our committee. And in fact, at one of the village board meetings, Terry, you even said, this is great. Let's do it. Let's look at it. So that was something that came out, wasn't referred to us by you guys. We just took that upon ourselves. So you can see here, there are some things that I think we can generate.
That would have been referred to you if it had followed the proper protocol. In fact, Rick has some insight on it. I'll let Rick go ahead and talk. He was probably chair then.
So with that, yeah, I was the chair at that time, and Administrator Krecklow and I discussed that. As the chair, I can call a meeting. Any chair can call a meeting. And that was one of them that we said, yeah, this is probably a good idea for a utility advisory committee. With that, you know, the makeup of it, and yes, former trustee Warren, he's obviously a trustee, and he was a former chair of that committee. And I've had a couple discussions of him as well, about this topic as well, and what the previous makeup was and when they met. And it was really at the discretion of either the chair of that committee or the Public Works Committee to get some recommendations. And the recommendations, besides what the Public Works Committee does, is getting recommendations from this committee because they're professionals out there. They're engineers. If you look at the makeup, engineers are supposed to be on that committee, and citizens. So we get extra information for things like that. And that's really what the committee's job is to make those recommendations when necessary, or when either the public work deems necessary or the chairman of that committee deems necessary. So that's how I look at it. It should be to me, it doesn't need to be met on a regular basis. It needs to be met on an as needed basis. And the content of it, that's the biggest question. Where does the content come from? Does it come from staff and Public Works, or does it come from the committee? It comes from Public Works and the staff. It doesn't come from the committee. That's my opinion. And I think that's how it's written in the code as well.
Do you have an opinion, trustee Norwood?
Yeah, I've got to agree with what Rick is saying here. I think what's pretty much been set up here is, I see this too as, one, it is, we have to remember, an advisory committee. And it should only be, I look at it as items that are referred to it by public. To all of a sudden just grab items out of the air, then nobody's going to know what's going on or who's doing what or whatever. And I think that gets to be dangerous. There's a far different role of an advisory, and there are things that I think you can help us with that we maybe don't have the time to give it
Well,
to.
that's one of them, right?
What I see more of the role that, but again, assigned by the chair or whatever. As far as approval of the agendas go, absolutely, that's gotta be approved. You just can't send out an agenda, and tackle any issue, that you want to see. So maybe there was some misunderstanding when you were appointed, or what you were thinking it was going to be, but it's cast here in stone, I think, pretty good. I don't foresee that we've got to make a lot of changes. We just got to make sure we have the right people on the committee. But as far as the meeting, yeah, I can see too where a couple times a year should be, all this group should be meeting, unless there's really something that's really pertinent or emergency that we really need help with. We appreciate we appreciate your involvement, and it's another way of getting citizens involved. But let's not go through too many channels. We already got that in Madison and West Bend and Washington, D.C. So let's not do a shot of them.
Yeah, I guess I'm being new to this, didn't know what I was going to encounter or how this all works. I don't like to play the political game on things, so I'm learning. And I appreciate those comments. Can't say I'm happy about everything that is being said, but I have to accept it. And we'll continue to work on things, and I'll be talking to you, and you give me more reason why I need to run for a trustee.
You should. There is a difference between the elected person and
Yes,
the
yeah.
advisory committee person.
So, but I do appreciate
Yeah.
talking to you guys. I'm sorry, what's that? What district were you in? I'm District 3. Yeah. You're safe. You're safe. So those were my comments. I appreciate.
Thank you.
it for letting me talk.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Okay, Melanie Smythe, N14W17938 Cedar Lane. I have been observing this committee since.
Talk loud. We can't, they can hear you on TV. We can't. There's
Okay.
no speaker.
I have been observing this committee since it started, I don't know, whenever it started. So I've been to all of the meetings, and I've also read the Muni Code, and it is actually set up differently than most of the committees. It does not say anything about the administrator. It does say something about the Director of Public Works. And it does say that you do need someone a trustee from Public Works as part of it. They don't have to be the chair. It also says that any person from that group can submit agenda items for consideration by the chair. Now, so that's my short interpretation of the Muni Code. Having watched these guys, and this all came about because of the whole IGA and the utility extension and people being just, PO'd by everything that was going on or upset and feeling like they had no control or input that was being taken. And so I think that I would suggest to this group that you've got some enthusiastic people. What they wanted to do, and this was what they were working on when the switch occurred with the chair, is they wanted to suggest some topics for you to consider and to say, yeah, these are things that maybe you should look further into or not. There was no intention of them going this way on their own and looking into things. It was all trying to figure out, okay, now we've dealt with the sewer rates and now we've suggested the rate study. Now what do we do? And so there's a lot of enthusiasm, and I agree with you. These people do want to help. They're interested. I would suggest that you possibly ask them for a list of topics and you consider those topics And then over the course of however many months, that is part of what you jointly review, but they do more homework on it if there's something that's outstanding. Because there are things, utilities are important in this community. It's a large chunk of people's output on a monthly basis, and the costs are going up. So, it's something that we all have to take
As,
consideration.
I don't know who your chair currently is, but whoever you can bring anything you want to me and ask if it should be placed on the advisory committee agenda. But it's going to have to be something that obviously is important to all residents,
Right.
not to a microcosm. And if it's IGA related, it can't just be sore loser IGA related.
Right, I
Because
understand.
we did lose that vote, and you know that I
Yes.
didn't support it, but I'm totally behind it now.
Yeah.
And we have to keep that in mind too, as public officials, how we have to behave in that way.
Absolutely. I think everyone is very respectful of that, and no one is, it's not a revenge thing or anything like that, but there's a genuine interest. And so I would suggest that you capitalize on it. And that was happening. There were some great conversations about a lot of kind of tricky things that were happening.
Bring it through your chairperson. I'd be happy to meet with him, and we can discuss what should or shouldn't be on the agenda.
Okay, thanks.
Committee, could I entertain a motion, please? Rick, you can do it. Just follow the recommendation. Oh, Jan, I'm sorry. We can't hear a thing up here.
I'm Jan Miller, W151N10297, Winsong Circle West. So I really urge you to read the ordinance again. I think the coordination of the Utility Advisory Committee, because it's dictated in the ordinance that it has somebody from Public Works sitting on that committee. And so those things can be, topics can be discussed to see if they even have any feet, right? If they even have any angst to go forward. Is there a reasonable reason that needs to be looked at? And it can be looked at, charts and engineering thing. There's engineers. We don't have a village engineer right now, but there are engineers on the Utility Advisory Committee. And I think perhaps the point is use the talent that is.
We do, on an advisory basis, and it can
Uh,
go right through your chairman, Dennis, who will bring it to us or to me,
Well-
and we'll determine if it will be addressed. There's a
I
channel
brought
for that.
something forward to the
Yeah.
committee chair, and it was scrutinized by the committee chair, not you, and administrator, and it was dropped without explanation. So I'm just saying,
Yeah.
going forward, if it goes to the committee chair and to you, I don't have a problem with that, because that's the conversation.
But
And
that's the normal channel.
right, and
Okay.
I truly believe that with the IGA, there's a lot of reports and things like that that have not been put forward. The Cedar Corporation, they don't have their report ready and probably won't be ready for 3 weeks. And we just passed it on the village board. So I'm saying that there's a lot more information than just a map sometimes. There's background information, and we were going through wetlands. So I am concerned, and I hope that this committee is too. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee.
So we want a motion on this?
Mhm.
Okay. Make a motion that we recommend that the Utility Advisory Committee convene as needed to address issues referred to them by the Public Works and Highways Committee or Village Board.
Second that.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Moving on to contract with Ehlers for a sewer utility rate study.
I can provide a quick overview of this. We did go out with an RFP for sewer utility rate study a couple of months ago. Actually, there was an RFP that was the scope of the RFP was reviewed both by the Utility Advisory Committee and the Public Works Committee. We received 3 proposals back. And I'm recommending that we award the contract to Ehlers. They submitted a proposal that was the low cost. It was $12,750. The other 2 proposals, while both qualified firms, were in the $30,000 range. The Ehlers proposal was responsive to all of our needs. Their staff that they propose is well qualified, and as an organization, they've done a lot of work of this type for municipalities like us. The Utility Advisory Committee reviews the proposal as well and voted to recommend that the contract be awarded to Ehlers. If the committee chooses to award the contract to Ehlers, it's below the $15,000 mark, so you can approve that at this meeting tonight. If, however, you choose to go with one of the other 2 proposals, that would have to be forwarded to village board because those are over $15,000.
Committee?
Make a motion to approve the contract with the others for $12,750 to complete the rate study of sewer utility.
I'll second that.
Yes, go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Steve, Ehlers was the only one that didn't have engineering expertise, but we don't see that as a problem here with the scope of this work.
There's no engineering work included in the scope of this project. It was just, as we went through the proposals, it was one of the differences.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to say that this probably did not go through proper protocol, and it should have been something that was advised to the utility committee from Public Works. Not knowing at the time when I was a very new chairman of that committee, and just took it upon myself with Administrator Krecklo, and we said this would be a really good one for utility. It should have came here first, and I apologize for that. That should have happened. It worked out well. I think this was a very good thing for the Utility Advisory Committee to review and propose, and now it's coming back, and things are back where they should be again.
Can I just very quickly, just
Sure, Steve.
one thing I feel like I should add after Trustee Miller's comments, just to note that the other thing that the Utility Advisory Committee is working on at this point is the water utility cash flow analysis, just so that the Public Works Committee has that information as well as anybody listening at home, that there is one other project that they've been working on that would kind of expect them to continue.
I assume there'll be a new timeline with this because we certainly didn't hit the timelines that they've got in their.
Yes, pending approval, we'll adjust that timeline.
Are we going to have this back by the end of the year?
I would anticipate we would, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more comments? Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Moving on to I, a resolution for the declaration of public necessity and relocation order to construct a highway through the area generally bounded by Freistadt Road, Goldendale, Interstate 41, and the Wisconsin and Southern Railroad.
This is an item that is the next step in the Richfield Sewer and Water IGA. Recently, the Plan Commission and the Village Board approved a route for sewer and water to lines to go through the Freistadt district as well as other areas of the village to provide service to Richfield. There will be a need in some areas to acquire right-of-way for the sewer and water. And this is a resolution that would allow that process to begin. So what this does is authorize an attorney who will be a part of the project to approach the property owners as specified in the file here this evening, and begin negotiations for acquisition of those properties. So if this is approved by the Public Works Committee, it would go to the Village Board, and the Village Board authorization would be necessary to begin that process.
Me?
Is this there's a list, Steve, of, what is there, 6 of them? Is that what you're talking?
Yes.
For,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Committee?
I would move for a motion, I make a motion to approve the resolution declaring public necessity and adopting the relocation order as presented.
Second.
Discussion.
Steve, what's the next process in this? Is this just approved by Public Works? Does this go to Village Board next?
This goes to village board, and it needs board approval as well. And then as the negotiations go forward, specific acquisitions would have to be approved by the board.
Right, and that proposed route, I think, was mentioned in our
Last board meeting.
last board meeting, that those lines may be adjusted based on certain things and acquisitions.
It could be a part of the process, and there is a map that outlines what is proposed, but as those negotiations go on with residents, the owners of those properties, there could be some adjustments. There will be additional soil testing that needs to get done, so there could be some changes to that specific route, to the specific route yet.
Thanks.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, will vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? One in opposition. Phil? Okay, moving ahead to update on the interim DPW director, a recruitment of a director.
And when the village board approved the agreements with Public Administration Associates for the interim director and the recruitment, one of the provisions was that I should report monthly to the Public Works Committee. We do have a well-qualified interim Public Works Director on board now, Bruce Stelzner, who was previously the Highways Commissioner for Chippewa County, Wisconsin. He started the week before Director Ratajczyk retired, and was able to get a little bit of transition time with Director Ratajczyk. He's been able to, between meetings and information that Director Ratajczyk provided, as well as meetings with the three superintendents and other village staff, he's been able to put together an inventory of all of the projects, the workload that is underway that needs to be completed and monitored, and is in the process of monitoring that. He's holding weekly meetings with the three superintendents to get updates on work that's progressing, and as some of those projects that the Public Works Director was working on have been taken up by other staff to monitor those. He's in typically 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday here in Village Hall. Bruce Stelzner is also the lead from PAA on the recruitment of the new DPW director and village engineer. He has reviewed job descriptions, salary ranges, et cetera, and has been put together a draft job announcement. He is working on some recommendations for the village board for some modifications to the pay ranges and job descriptions, which he's planning to present to the village board at the upcoming meeting on Monday. Based on the feedback from the board on those recommendations that he's making, we hope to get those announcements out and begin the process of recruiting by the end of next week.
Any questions? Bill?
So we're still functioning under the temporary structure that I think it's been temporary for two years now.
Yes.
So, and is that going from temporary to permanent, or are we going to move that back to? I believe it should be.
I believe it should be that way as well, and the job descriptions still incorporate that model, and as far as I know, Bruce is not recommending anything different.
And while he is the interim, they will continue to report to you, correct?
For all personnel purposes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I just have to make a comment that kind of is just a blanket statement on our attempts to hire people for our positions. And while I was on vacation last week, I think it was on either Bloomberg or it was on CNBC, one of those shows, they were talking about how this is a national issue, hiring municipal employees because of the competition and because of the economy, that this isn't a Germantown problem. This is a nationwide city, village, town problem. And I think we have to keep that in mind. And if this takes a little longer than we hope, so be it. I'd rather have it take a little longer than we hope and hopefully get somebody decent in here.
There actually was an article, if I can find it again, when I send my weekly update to the trustees, I'll include a link to it, but that talked about that very topic, that vacancy rates, turnover rates are more than double nationwide in municipalities of what they typically have been. The article that I read talked specifically about public safety positions, police and fire, the difficulty there, but also did mention engineers and really across the board that any position is being very difficult to fill.
So this is advisory, and so we have nothing we have to act on here. So move on to L, our final item, award of contract for the 20. I'm sorry, Bill.
That's all right. So I'm a little uneasy with the recruiter and the intern person being actually the same individual. That's atypical in my experience. So who is watching the candidate funnel and who is monitoring those applications to make sure that everything is happening the way it should on a timely basis?
The applications are actually going to go through our system at the village. We use a software package called NeoGov, and that is one of the things it's not typical for PAA, but we did ask that all the applications go through our system so that we're able to review those and monitor those. And I will be working very closely with Bruce to make sure that we get applicants and that we are considering those that are well qualified.
One quick final comment for you, Steve. Just, I did see online on the municipal government, there are several public works director positions open. Some of them did list salaries. So just take a look back at that and I'll leave it with that.
Will do.
Okay, now moving on to our final item, award of contract 2023 water crossing CIPP. Tim, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were on the very end here. We could have brought you up.
You should request to be at the end because I had some stuff going on this afternoon.
Oh, okay. Then I won't feel bad.
No feel bad. This was included in this year's budget. If you look at the map, the areas we're looking at lining all fall under that western, at Lake Park, basically bound by Western Avenue vision. Line segments we're looking at doing consist of 776 lineal feet of 30-inch interceptor sewer. 10 feet of trunk sewer, 15-inch, and then collector mains at 122 feet of 10-inch vitrified. Bid for this project. I get hired, but water, sewer. Offset.
Me?
I'll make a motion to award the contract to Visa Sewer for $290,174 and include a 10% contingency of $29,017.40 for a grand total of $319,191.40. And transfer the remaining $49,190.40 from account 80, account 60, 18,018,231.10. Yeah, I think I got that.
Second.
Questions, comments, Rick?
Yeah, question though, if we don't use the contingency in that, does it go back into that other account?
Just roll back. We're not anticipating this is pretty tough. Just give us a call.
And if I recall, Vision Sewer's done a ton of work for us already and some lining, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Decent to write back there.
And what's nice about this is it's forward thinking to avoid a problem in the future. And we know how many problems we've had in this area in the past. So this is good. So we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. I think that takes care of everything on our agenda for the evening. We can set a next meeting date. That the first Wednesday in September would be the 6th. Does that work for everybody? I mean, Labor Day is that Monday, but by Wednesday, everybody's back and, right? Okay. So 6th at 5:30 in this room. And with that, we will adjourn at, unless there's some announcements from Steve? Committee members? No? We will adjourn at 7:26 PM. Thank you, everyone. Made it. Under. Let's go for 5 minutes more. Yeah, there were two videos. Did we all get one of these packages? Really? You want mine? Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. It sounds really boring, doesn't it? And it's one of those envelopes that you need like a knife or a scissors to open.
It's very targeted to the right person.
That's probably a good idea.
Oh, Dennis.